Good morning and thank you for joining us for a live talk with Network Rail. Soon you will hear from Usama and Arshya talking about their career journeys from secondary education to becoming engineers and why they are so passionate about what they do. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, so pop them into the chat and we will aim to answer as many as we can at the end of the talk. You can also email us any questions you may have post-event to askanambassador@canterbury.ac.uk. That's detailed in the chat for you. So that's enough from me, as I'm sure you're excited to hear from our Network Rail grads. So over to you, Usama.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Hi guys, my name is Usama and today me and my colleagues will be talking about our journey, how we got from where you guys are to where we are right now. Some of the things that we'll be talking about is what we study in school, college, university, how we found our jobs, a little bit about the graduate scheme and how you guys can get in on the fun. Next slide, please. A little bit about me. I went to Stepney Green Maths and Computing College, and when I was you guys' age, I had no idea what I wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to become a pilot, travel the world. Another point, I wanted to be a game designer. I loved playing games growing up. I played Street Fighter, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, and for you younger ones, maybe Fortnite. And who wouldn't want to get paid to play games all the time? But as I was growing up, my dad had a garage, and every now and then I'd pop over to his garage and I'd see him tinkering away. He'd have a problem, he'd try to solve and get his hands dirty. And something about that made me want to also, get my hands dirty and want to solve problems. And would you guys believe me if I told you that's the core essence of what an engineer does? If they look for problems and they try and find solutions, effective solutions, efficient solutions, and they try and draw it into existence. We want to go on holiday to somewhere that's much warmer than here. How do we get there? We fly. Aeronautical engineers. Can cars have too much pollution? Let's go electric. Boom. Mechanical/electrical engineers. Now, if you're interested in creating something amazing or love solving problems, here are a few steps we took to becoming engineers of today. First thing first, come up with a goal. If you haven't already done so, it's completely fine. Start from the smallest thing or go to the biggest thing that you can think of. For example, some of the things could be, I want to make the fastest car in the world. I want to make the coolest looking building, or, I want to make new and helpful technology. It can be literally anything. Next step, ask a gazillion questions, and I mean a gazillion. No matter how big, no matter how small. At Network Rail here, we have a policy. It's called, there's no such thing as a silly question. This will help you learn and find out much more about whatever it is that you're asking about. Lastly, don't be scared. I know exactly how it feels to sometimes not have a plan, other people around you planning, and they got an idea of what they want to do, what they don't want to do, etc., etc. When I was in you guys' place, I had no idea, as I mentioned before. It's all right. Be brave, take the first step, and the next one will come. Honestly, dream big, and you'll surprise yourself of what you're capable of. Next slide, please. Now that we've talked about the foundations, even that's an engineering term, let's talk about subjects. Now, if what I said before sounds very appealing, then you want to become an engineer or something of that sort. You want to look into studying STEM subjects. Now, STEM subjects are things like, as you can see on the board, sciences, so that could be biology, chemistry, physics, maths, IT, design and technology. For me, I was pretty good at maths and science, and because of that, I was put down for triple science, so I didn't have to pick that down for an option. Next slide, please. My school gave me 3 options, and I chose the following. Firstly, history, and I learned about World War I and II, which was fascinating. And if you like learning about the past and are good at reading, because there's a lot of reading, I'd recommend choosing history. A wise man once said, study the past if you would define the future, which means looking back at what happened, it'll help you make informed decisions as you go along. We use that same principle in engineering all the time. Next subject I chose was double IT, meaning extra IT. I'd have a core class and then I'd do an extra class. I chose it because we're surrounded by technology. Right now you guys are using a projector to look at the screen. I'm using my laptop, and I knew as I grew up it'd be everywhere. Some of the things I learned in those classes are still used to today. For example, using Microsoft Excel. As an engineer, you can find yourself with a lot of calculations, a lot of numbers all over the place, and we can use Microsoft Excel as a live calculator, and does all of our calculations in seconds. I also learned how to use Microsoft PowerPoint, and as you guys can see, I made a pretty fancy PowerPoint, when you say. Lastly, I chose graphic design. As I talked about before, I wanted to get into the gaming scene, make gaming stuff. This is how much I wanted to get into it, but the best drawing I could do was stick figures, and even they would be funny looking. I didn't end up going into making games. But I did make some cool stuff. I made this Superman drawing, which I was really proud of. What I took away from that class or that subject, was drawing, and with a bit more detail. And in engineering, pictures and drawings are very important when it comes to describing ideas. Next slide, please. Now that we've talked about school, let's talk about college. By the near the end of school, I had a rough idea as to what I wanted to do, and engineering was on my mind, as I mentioned before. So after a little research, Googling stuff, asking my teachers, I found out that civil engineer is something that I want to do, and some of the subjects that would help me get there are the following: chemistry, physics, and maths. I picked maths because obviously engineering is surrounded by lots of calculations and lots of maths. And what I learned in college were algebra, furthering my knowledge in school about how to find X and Y, simultaneous equations, etc. Forces, how gravity would affect the speed of things, and learn how to read graphs better. We use that all the time in engineering. Some of the things I learned in chemistry were atom bonding, how atoms stick together, and why certain materials are stronger or conduct electricity. We use that when we're choosing materials to build buildings or our assets. I learned about the different elements on the periodic table, what some of the stuff does and what other of the stuff does. One of the main things in chemistry that I remember about was experiments. In chemistry, you get to do a lot of experiments, and as you guys can see on the presentation, there's a mixing of chemicals, and honestly, that was one of the experiments that we did, get to mix different chemicals, see what the reactions are, and loads more other things. Lastly, physics. Physics is very important when it comes to engineering, and it tells us how things interact with each other. I learned about Newton's law, one of which is for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I'm sure some of you guys knew that already. I learned about electricity, electric fields, and how magnets work. And lastly, there was a section about astrophysics, and you get to learn about the sun, stars, and cool stuff like the black hole. Last point before I pass over to Zoo, the more focused you guys are now, the more freedom you'll have to choose which subjects that you want, and choose the career, choose your college, and choose your university. I'll pass it over to you now, Zoo.
Hi everyone, I'm Sue, one of the graduate engineer at Network Rail. Since Usama already went through the GCSE and A-Level, to be honest, those can be fun, but very stressful at the same time, not knowing what you want to become or what you want to study at university. So fast forward that, and now is the fun part. Trust me, all your hard work that you put in school will now pay off. So I had the best year of my life at uni, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my university experience. Next slide, please. I'll just give you a little intro into what we study and which university we want to. So I study electrical and electronic engineering and went to the University of Sussex in Brighton. Usama studied civil engineering and went to City University of London. And Arshya, who is also my colleague, he will be presenting right after me, went to Brunel University and studied civil engineering. So we've got civil and electrical engineer with you today. Next slide, please. Yes, we've all had brilliant time in uni and made such a precious memory. And yes, I don't have the amazing graduation picture like these two guys here, but this is because I graduated in the year of COVID. But regardless, I still had a great time in uni and amazing experience that I will never stop talking about. So in the next upcoming slide, I will just be sharing a bit of what I did in my first, second and third year, and also a little bit about my master's degree project as well. Next slide, please. So for first and second year, we mainly go to lectures, workshops and laboratory. And obviously you have coursework and exam that you have to pass in order to proceed to the next year. It's a very much self-disciplinary involved. So moving on from GCSE A-Level to first year of university, you're going to find yourself having a lot of free time. So you just have to prioritize yourself with socializing, joining different society, and also getting all the work done on time. But in third year, that's when it get a bit more personal. Next slide, please. Now, this is the third year university project. So you can choose your own project that you want to work with the proposed lecturer. So my project was about designing a driver assistance system for a car. So what is a driver assistance system? So I have this mini buggy that I use as a prototype, and the system works a bit like a car parking sensor that I'm sure most of you already know about it. So whenever there is a person or an object detected by the sensor, it will alarm the driver with beep, beep sound, or the driver can see on the LED screen as well. So there was a lot of programming and designing involved. And once everything is installed, then there was a lot of testing to make sure everything worked as you wanted it to be. So that was my third year project. And next slide, please. So, and then moving on to the master's degree project, you can choose to do either a group project or an individual project. They're definitely more hands-on, and a lot of people would choose to do group project. That way you can kind of learn more about not just the technical skill, but more of the skills that are important in the business, like teamwork or like organizing things. For me, I did a formula student project where me and my teammates got assigned to design, assemble, and test different part of this racing car that you are seeing on the screen. And then at the end of the designing and assembling stage, we then go to a racing ground where we get to compete against other students from different universities around the world in terms of the design, the budget, and their creativity. So as you can see in this picture, the top 3 picture was taken when we did the testing of the car. The bottom left picture was taken when we did a little racing with the go-kart to decide who can drive the fastest so that person can be the driver for our car. Sadly, it wasn't me. And the bottom right picture was during an open day event where we get to promote about our team with a lot of students who came and visit our university. So it was a great fun working with these guys on this project. Next slide. So after having all the fun experience and you're in your final year of university, here come the job hunting. It's not an easy process, but if you're prepared for it, it's totally possible. You just gotta work on your CV, your work experience, and then they don't necessarily, when I say work experience, they don't necessarily have to be relevant experience. Like now I'm working as an engineer in the rail industry, but before this, I've never had any experience working for the railway. Like, how am I supposed to have it, right? I was still a university student when I was looking for this job, but you can have transferable skill from different experiences. Like you can work as a student ambassador while you're in the university, and you can gain communication skills or presentation skills like what we're doing right now. So in the meantime, if you do have opportunities, I would strongly recommend you to try and do, I don't know, summer internship or even some work experience or part-time job that they will all help you build your CV and prepare for your interview. Next slide. So this is like the process you have to go through when you look for your first job after you graduate. Like I said, you have to prepare for the CV, the cover letter. Some company make you do psychometric gauge. And then the next step is the telephone interview or video interview. And then finally moving on to assessment center. So my colleague Arshya will now talk about life as a graduate engineer at Network Rail. Over to you, Arshya.
Hello everyone, my name is Arshya and I'll be talking through what it's like to be a graduate engineer at Network Rail. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So just before I get into that, I wanted to briefly discuss my journey from education to work life, which is slightly different from Usama's and Zoo's. There's more than one way to do it, so I'll go through how I did. So similar to what most of you are doing at school right now, probably doing your GCSEs. I was the same, and the important GCSEs to do if you want to get into engineering are getting good grades in maths, English, and science. And getting good grades in those will allow you to then move on to doing A-levels. So that's the typical route. I actually didn't go the A-level route. I studied a BTech level 3 engineering at college, and that's an equivalent to 3 A-levels, which allowed me to then go onto university and study civil engineering. And I did a 3-year course in university, which allowed me to get a bachelor's of engineering, which then allowed me to get a job with Network Rail on the graduate scheme. And next slide, please. So before I discuss what the graduate scheme is like, it's important to just clarify what we do at Network Rail, because a lot of my friends, they just think it's something to do with trains, and I don't blame them, because I was the same before I started at Network Rail. I didn't really realize how much went into it, and we don't actually run any trains. So what we do at Network Rail is we maintain the infrastructure that allows trains to travel through. So everything to do with the routes that trains go on. So for example, we've got thousands of miles of track. We have stations, tunnels, bridges, and embankments that our tracks actually sit on. And we have what is known as cuttings or steep slopes next to the railway that we have to manage as well. So that's what we do at Network. So there's lots of jobs in terms of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and civil engineering. So in the graduate scheme for engineering, we get the option of 6 months of business familiarization. So that's the first 6 months of a 2-year scheme, where in those 6 months you get to go around the company doing short-term placements. So you get to spend a month in, for example, working with the structures team, or a few weeks with the track team. You really have a lot of choice in where you want to go, and it's really up to you to see as much as you can in those 6 months, and then that will help you decide where you want to go on to for your next 3 placements, which are 6 months as well. That will make up the 2 years. So some of those placements are, for example, route asset management. What assets management it actually is, it's very simple. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. So we call parts of our business assets, really. So a part of a track is an asset, a tunnel is an asset, a bridge is an asset. So we have structures, geotech, and track, just to name a few. And you'll be working with teams just managing those, making sure that they all function as they should do, and letting the maintenance teams know if they need any work doing to them. Then you could do a track maintenance placement where you actually go out on track, and quite exciting. So you get to see a lot of cool work being done where rails are replaced and the track is fixed up or renewed. You can also work in design. So that would be going on to CAD. I don't know if some of you are familiar with that, but you get to do drawings on the computer, and you can see some of that work come into real life, which is very interesting. Project engineering, you'll be the people reviewing those designs and making sure that they work as they should do, and that it won't fail when we actually create those designs, essentially, and make sure they're safe. Project management, so that will be just making sure that we're delivering those projects on time and within budget. And next slide, please. So what projects have I worked on? So I worked with the geotech team in asset management for 6 months, then I moved over to geotech project management. So in the geotech jobs we have, we deal with embankments and steep slopes next to our railway. So this is an example you can see on the top right of steep slopes around a tunnel that we have. So around that tunnel portal and the actual steep slopes near the railway, they could be quite dangerous, because if they're very steep and we have trees on them, in bad weather, we can have rocks fall onto the railway, we can have soil fall onto the railway, tree stumps and things like that, which can be very dangerous for trains, because as you can imagine, if a train was to come through that tunnel, it's quite dark and they might not see what's on the other side, and they won't be able to stop in time, and they can hit some of that material that's on the track, and that will cause the train to derail, and that could be very dangerous. So we carry out projects to make sure that we keep the railway safe. In the image in the bottom right, you can see that we had a failure there, and we put bags of ballast to stop more material falling down, just as a temporary measure. If we go on the next slide, I could then run through one of the solutions that we actually implement. So here we have a steep cutting. So some of you may have seen this, because this is an engineering technique that's carried out on railway routes and as well as highways. So what we do is we drill very large or very long nails into cuttings or embankments. This here you can see it's a cutting here, which is a steep slope, and what we do is we drill these large nails into the cutting face, and then we attach meshing to it to keep all that material back, to make sure the railway is kept safe and to stop material falling onto the track. Before we can actually install these, though, we do have to carry out some devegetation of those slopes. So you could have trees there, so we have to cut down sometimes trees and remove some of that topsoil, so we can so we're able to drill those nails into the slope. Next slide, please. So what have I discovered from my journey? So I had to think back when I was preparing this presentation to when I was at your age in secondary school, and I've discovered a lot since then. So one of those things is what an engineer is and what they do. So if you were to look at the dictionary definition, an engineer is a person who designs, builds, or maintains engines, machines, or structures. Now, as a civil engineer, we work in designing, building, and maintaining structures. So that is something that it sounds very simple when you just read a dictionary definition, but there's so much that goes into it. So at Network Rail, if you can see that image on the right hand side, we sit in the top bit as the client, and we mostly work with maintaining most of our assets, like I described before. We also do a bit of designing and a bit of building, but most of that work we give to contractors to do and consultants to do for us, and we just manage that and oversee that. So but as an engineer, you could work in all these different areas. So you can work as someone who designs, or you can work as someone who builds, or you can work with a company that maintains. So there's a lot that goes into it, and which moves on to my second point. Engineering has a great variety of different jobs. Even within civil engineers, there's so much you can do. So when I was at your age, I was probably thinking, oh, I don't want to pick something because I'm not sure what I want to do. If I pick civil engineering, for example, or that engineering, I'll be stuck in that and I can't change onto anything else. But the reality is, even within that one sector, there's so many different jobs you could do. It's likely that you'd find something that you enjoy. So that is something to definitely consider, not to worry about when you're picking what route you're going to go down, because usually in these big sectors, there's lots of different jobs you can actually do, and they're quite different. So the next thing I learned is this next thing I discovered is there is a lot to learn, and learning doesn't end when you finish school or graduate. So this is something when I was in school, and some of you may relate, I was kind of getting tired of just being in school and studying all the time, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to finish school and finish education. But the reality is that you never stop learning, and so you might as well just accept that, get used to it, learn to enjoy it, and when you actually put your mind to it, you start finding out that you can enjoy aspects of studying, and it's a really important skill to have because you're going to be learning throughout your whole life. So that's something that is good to embrace, and something to bear in mind. So the next thing I discovered in my journey, it's not too hard and everyone can do it. So I know some people that struggle with the maths, some people struggle with the writing reports, the English side of things. That's fine. A lot of people have their struggles with different aspects of education and the technical side of things. It's okay. Remember just to stick with it and keep trying and not give up, because you would eventually understand it and you'll feel really proud of yourself for being able to achieve that. And next slide, please. So you're probably thinking all of this is way down the line and I don't need to worry about it today. But the truth is that it's going to come around sooner than you think, and you can get involved a lot sooner than you think. So one of the ways you can get involved, if you're not interested in going to university, and that's okay because it's not for everyone, there's apprenticeships you could do. So once you finish school, you can go the apprenticeship route, which means you're working, you're earning money, and you are getting qualifications at the same time. Really good advantage of doing apprenticeships is that you can get a lot of experience and get qualified and get paid for it. So by the time someone would have came out of uni, you would have had some qualifications as well, but also a massive amount of experience. So that's something to bear in mind, something that if you're interested, you can look into more. Network Rail, we offer apprenticeships, so please do check out our website and go on to early careers and you can learn more about it. There's the option of summer placements, so you could start this as soon as your first year of uni, where you could work in the summer times in your first year and your second year. You could do 3 months with Network Rail and you'd learn a lot in those 3 months. And you could do that in your first year and your second year, so you can get a good amount of experience, and you could even do it in your third year, so you get a good amount of experience across that time. So by the time you graduate, you have experience too, and you would have earned some money over the summer as well, so that's good too. Next slide, please. Another option is after your second year of university, you could do a year in industry. So what that is you've passed your second year, you instead of going straight into your third year of uni, you can take a year out and work in industry. This is really good because you can make some money and see where what you like and what you don't like. I definitely recommend doing this. I personally didn't do it, but have colleagues who did, and it definitely benefited them when they went to get a job. Those who did a year in industry for Network Rail were very likely to get a graduate job at the end of their degree, so it's worth bearing in mind. And of course, lastly, what we've talked about today is the graduate schemes that me, Usama, and Zoo are on. And so please do check out our website. There's lots of different ways you can get involved. Yeah, so thank you for listening. That concludes the presentation. We can now move on to a Q&A where you can ask questions.
Thank you, guys. That was absolutely amazing. You have certainly been on a fantastic career journey so far, and we wish you the best of luck with the next stage of your careers. We hope it has inspired our audience to think about their career paths and possibly working for Network Rail in the future. So we can see there are many interesting questions in the chat. So Sophie, let's kick off with some of these, please.
Okay, so the first question is, how did you decide which engineering discipline to study? Usama, would you like to answer that question?
I'll take that one, guys. So in terms of how to pick, that's a really good question, because some of you guys may know, engineering is very vast. There's a lot of different types of engineering: chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, aerodynamics, and so on and so forth. For me, bridges, and as I was growing up, they made the Olympic Stadium. And that was one of the reasons why I ended up choosing civil, because to build the stadium, you need to have civil experience, building structures and whatnot. I always wanted to make something. My goal in life is to hopefully be involved in a project that I can make or be part of. And once I'm not here no more, the building is still there and it's still helping people.
That's great. Thank you for that, Usama. Okay, so I've got a question. What is the difference between BTech and A-Level? Who would like to answer that?
Yeah, I could answer that. So the difference between BTech and A-Level, so level 3 BTech, it can be an equivalent to A-Levels. The difference is that in BTech you do more coursework and less exams. So whereas in A-levels you would study lots and do exams maybe at the end of the year. So you have all your exams at the end of the year, for example. In BTech you'll be doing coursework throughout the year. So it's similar to actually working in some ways, where you'd have assignments and you complete them, and that goes towards your final grade. I chose the BTech route because I was someone who left things last minute, and when it came to exam time, I'd be like, oh no, I haven't studied. So doing the BTech let me prepare the work and gradually throughout the year, which let me achieve my grade. You do have to do some tests as well in BTech. They've increased the amount of tests you do recently. Those would be like usually class tests or small tests which are worth less than what it would be in A-level. So it's definitely worth considering. They both have their advantages and disadvantages, but you can look online for more information on different colleges' websites and speak to your tutors.
Brilliant, thank you. This is a question perhaps to Zoo. What did you enjoy most about university?
Hi, yes, most about university, there is so much I can't really pick one, but if I must, then I would say I have done a lot of summer experience in between uni. So moving on from first year to second year, we have summer gap, right? So I've always look at university website and look for all these different opportunities where, because I love traveling so much, so I always look for ways where I can go abroad, but for free as well at the same time. So my university offer summer internship abroad, which I get to go to China for 2 months and kind of travel around China at the same time working for this manufacturing company. And after my second year, I went to South Korea for a month, did a summer school in South Korea, again, get to learn about Korean culture and language and everything. So I would say there are so many different opportunities that in uni, but they're kind of hidden as well. So if you do get to uni, try and like search for them. Don't just think that they will come to you like automatically. You have to go look around at the career website and everything. Pay attention to those posters that are like stick on the wall all over like your lecture room and everything, and just pay attention to those and make use of those opportunities.
Thank you, that's great, Zoe. I've got another question. It's about what do you enjoy most about engineering?
Yeah, I could answer that. So one of the things I enjoy most about engineering is that there is a big mixture of things you can do. There's a lot of variety in the role. So you know, I could be in the office a few days a week and on site a few days a week. So you get that ability to go out and see how things are going on the ground in terms of the construction, how it's progressing, and you also have the ability to work from the office, and you get to speak to lots of people, technical and not technical people. So you get a great variety of people and work to do. So that's what I enjoy most about engineering.
Yeah, that sounds great then. Okay. So maybe Usama can answer this one. Why did you select civil engineering in particular?
That's a good question, and luckily it's towards me because I am a civil engineer, whereas we have Zoo. I think she's specializes in electrical engineering. Again, as I mentioned before, civil engineering, it's more to do related with buildings. So you have tunnels, bridges, and stuff like that. So I just find it so cool to think that one day there's going to be a bridge and I can say, you know what, I helped build that. Or there's a building, so you know what, it's for whatever use, and I'm like, you know what, I was part of the team that helped to design it, helped construct it, or you know, helped oversee it, whatever it is. I just find that stuff so cool.
Can I just add onto that one as well? It's not related to civil engineering, but don't feel like once you choose civil engineering, once you apply for university with a civil engineering degree, don't feel like you have to stick to that civil engineering. Because what I did was I applied to do a mechanical engineering degree, and I did my first year mechanical engineering degree. And then it turned out that I enjoy the electrical side more. I like the coursework and the module that we have in the electrical engineering degree more. So because all the engineer in the very first year, we all share a very similar module. So it is kind of like after your first year, if you don't think civil engineering or mechanical isn't for you, you are still quite flexible to change as long as you talk to your lecturer, your professor, and then explain your reason why you want to change, why not this one, but the other one will be more suitable for you. So yes, don't feel like you have to like stick to one just because this is what you apply for. There is still room for you, room for flexibility, I would say.
That's great. Okay, so have we still got time for a few more questions, Lisa?
I think we can take one or two more, yes.
Okay, lovely. So I've got one about the most challenging thing about sixth form and college. What was the most challenging thing? Who would like to answer that?
I'll take that one. For me personally, it's genuinely the jump of independence. You know, obviously, as you were talking about before, you get a bit more extra when you go to university, but from school to college / A-level, in school, your teachers are chasing after you for your homework, for your assignments and stuff. In college, they set you assignments and they set you, homework and stuff, but if you don't do it, that's kind of when you, and all that happens is if you're not paying attention, if you're not doing what you need to do, it builds up. You have this much homework that becomes that much homework, that becomes that much homework, or assignments, fall behind, and then by the time you know it, your 2 years is finished, and you're struggling to when it comes to your exams and stuff. So I would definitely say have timetables, understand the way that you work, have a little group if you need, and try and stay on top of things, because they don't chase you as much in school, which is cool, because you don't like having your teachers chasing you all the time and giving you detention and all that stuff. You don't have detention in A-levels. At the same time, it's all up to you to put down your own focus.
Brilliant. So I have got a question from Southfield School. So you might want to just give a sort of a general starting salary rather than your own personal starting salary, but they'd like to know what is the starting salary for somebody starting.
I'll take that one. Usually, I think it varies quite a bit, but I think as entering into the engineering world, you can look between 25 to about 30k, and then as you get a bit more experienced, it shoots upwards from 40, 50, 60. A great place to look if you guys are interested in terms of looking at salaries of different types of engineers, because an electrical engineer would vary from a civil engineer, etc., is a website called On Target. I remember when I was in university, I was looking at places to apply. They have quite a lot of information about different companies, what their starting salaries are, what it can go up to, and stuff like that. Or even there's another website called Glassdoor. That one looks a bit more specifically about companies and how they are operating and stuff. Because when you apply to a company, when you go into a company, you're joining a team or family, and different teams and different families, they work in different ways. Some people are very high functioning and they want results, and you might want to be in that whole hustling, bustling and stuff. And other teams are a bit more slower. We do things, we make it done, but we want quality over quantity. So have a look at those websites that I mentioned. So something around On Target and Glassdoor.
If I could also add to that, is on our Network Rail website, Network Rail is very transparent about what the pay is, especially for apprenticeships and graduates. So if you look on the website, it will have more details on how much it is. I believe from the top of my head, it's about 26,500 for the graduate scheme, and then you get a signing on bonus of 2,000. But that could change by the time you apply. So it varies, but it's always worth to get for the most up-to-date information is checking on our website.
Lovely, thank you. I think that concludes all the questions.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you very much to our 3 great STEM ambassadors from Network Rail. We really appreciate your honesty, your enthusiasm, great careers advice during National Careers Week, and today we celebrate International Women's Day too. So for all you budding female engineers out there, we hope you really enjoyed the talk today. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you another time. Next week, if you want to take a look at the STEM Hub at the website, we'll be running our Growth in STEM event, where there'll be more information about careers advice. So thank you. Goodbye.